sure. There it is. Okay. We are recording. So welcome everybody to the May WAG meeting. And we're going to hear about the Stormwater Master Plan at this meeting, plus a few other things. But I thought for the sake of Libby being new in the facilitation role, maybe we'd just go around just really quickly and everybody just say their name and who they represent. I'll start here in the room and I'll start with Austin right next to me.
Hi, my name is Austin Samhegi. I'm in the engineering department, focused on water and stormwater projects. So yeah, capital delivery, and then also working with Trista on the stormwater master plan.
Okay.
Nice to meet you.
And everybody knows me. I'm Lori with City Bend.
Maddie Alexander is also in the engineering department. I've been here for a little under a year, so I've been helping out with water, stormwater, transportation, just trying to be a sponge.
Okay. Nice to meet you.
Hi, I'm Bronwyn Mastro, landscape architect with the Park and Recreation District.
Rick Martinson with Winter Creek and the High Desert Fort Center.
Nice to meet you.
City of Bend Water Services Stormwater Program.
Okay, so let's go on the screen. Let's I'm just gonna go in the order I'm seeing. So Trista.
Sorry, I had trouble getting my microphone off. I'm Trista Kobleski with OTAC, and I'm the project manager for the update of the Bend Stormwater Master Plan, which is the topic of this meeting today.
Nice to meet you.
Okay, Carolyn.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Carolyn Suffet. I'm with the Water Resources Department. I'm the Central Region Manager for Field Services. So just here is an advisor from our perspective.
Awesome.
Nice to meet you.
Ashlyn.
I'm Ashlyn Gribsko. I'm with Polish Homes. I manage the Land Development Department in Central Oregon.
Nice to meet you.
Kristen.
Hi, I'm Kristen. I'm in the Cities and Towns program. I'm the Associate Program Manager at Central Oregon Land Watch.
Nice to
And
meet you.
Brian.
Yep. Hi, Libby. Brian Wilkinson with AKS Engineering. I manage our Central Oregon region.
Okay.
And then Mike, you were talking earlier, but you could formally introduce yourself.
Sure. Mike Zabo, Zabo Landscape Architecture. We're a landscape architecture firm locally here, work on a wide variety of projects, residential, municipal, commercial, kind of all of the above.
Nice to meet you, Mike.
And I'm just letting Mark Buckley in. Mark, you're here just at the perfect time to introduce yourself, to say who you are and who you represent.
Yes, hi, I'm Mark Buckley. I'm an economist. My day job with Echo Northwest, but I'm representing the ECC Environment and Climate Committee on here. Sorry, I had a double booked meetings.
Oh, no, thanks for joining us. And then we have one more joined us in the room. That's Jillian. Do you want to introduce yourself, Jillian?
Hi, everybody. I'm Jillian Ochner. I worked at the city from 2014 to 2019, working in the city manager's office as a senior policy analyst. I'm back as a senior management analyst, working in water services on rates, predominantly rate structure and legislative agenda, and trying to help Mike on the policy side of things. So.
Nice to see you again.
Yeah, hello.
Hi. Yeah.
Oh, hi, Libby. There you
Hi.
are.
Okay, great. Thanks, everybody. Oh,
There's did I miss Brooke?
Oh,
Also?
and Brooke. Brooke, you slipped in. Can you introduce yourself, please? Brooke, are you there?
She might be having.
Oh, there she
Sorry.
is.
Let me activate that. Yeah. Hi, Lori. Hi, everyone. My name's Brooke Olson. I'm with the Bend City Attorney's Office.
Okay.
I've been part of this, and I'm just here to watch and observe.
Nice to meet you.
Okay. I think I got everybody. Thank you. Okay, I will go ahead and share my screen. Everybody can see the presentation. Maybe on the screen, can you just like nod or give me a thumbs up if you can see that? Okay, thank you. Okay, so we know all that. Is it not? There it goes. Okay, so today I'll real quickly just go through some summary reflections from our April meeting. I'm going to talk briefly about the June tour. It's going to be very exciting. And then we're going to focus our time on the Stormwater Master Plan, getting some feedback and introducing one last new topic, which is level of service. And we're actually going to have Austin's going to have some fun interactive stuff for us to do on that today. So no pressure there, Austin. Let's see. So it's funny, I had a hard time fitting this into one slide, but when we talked about two things at the April meeting. First was we talked about the analysis work we're doing to evaluate how we're doing with the water conservation program. And of course, there was particularly discussion about conservation-based water rates. So, we talked about the challenges and the benefits and the objectives for doing that. And I listed some of the key objectives that came out of both the presentation from Madaus, but also from our discussion. So financial sufficiency, sustainability, regulatory compliance, affordability, predictability. There were other words too, but I think those kind of really summed it up. And then thank you for those that helped us with some of the questions to ask other utilities. So kind of the next area of work is that Madaus is going to interview 10 water utilities kind of around the Western US, and that's listed on the right in the blue. And so thanks everybody for your input on that. And then I'll also note kind of a number 11 is we're going to also keep in touch directly with the city of Redmond, because they're also working on their rates right now as well. It's just we have regular conversations with them, so we don't have to have the consultant do that conversation.
Those all have kind of similar rainfall. Is that more like?
No, it's actually jurisdictions that actually have considered the concept of water conservation based rates. So which is not just your standard water rates, but those that encourage people to use less water because of how it costs.
Yeah.
And yet also paying for managing the system at the same time, because we still have to do that. And then these were so we had a much shorter part of the meeting last time, which was a kind of an update on drainage and density. And so these were some of the things we heard from that part of the meeting. The ongoing conversation about it, if we're really going to encourage private and public runoff to be together in the same facilities, considering equity about who's managing those facilities, who's paying for that, when we should allow it, and considering when we get into a stormwater rate study of should there be differing rates for depending on whether you're taking care of stormwater yourself or whether like maybe the city's taking care of it for you. So these will be some recommendations that will be coming out in the master plan. And I'll also note, what's been exciting, we've had a bunch of conversations about this. There's a lot of intense interest, and I really think everybody's ideas are all converging about having more tools in the toolkit for development, having more opportunity and more encouragement for facilities to be more on a subdivision scale than a lot by lot scale. And actually there's a whole bunch of city staff. It's amazing how many people are interested from multiple departments are going out tomorrow on a field trip to go look at a development on the west side of town, Discovery West, which is a bit of a poster child for these issues of drainage and density, and then problems that are caused by small on-site facilities, erosion issues, things like that. So a bunch of us are going to go out there tomorrow, and that will add to it. That'll be the last bit to add to the recommendations that Trish is putting together for the plan. So, and then before I hand it over to Trista, one last thing. So our next meeting next month, every June, we try to have a field trip. So we try to have everybody hopefully available in person. Well, it's the only option for a field trip. So we're gonna go to Overturf Park. So that's over on the west side of town. This is an old water site. It's a really important water site because it's of its elevation. It's at the same elevation as our Outback facility where we have our water filtration facility and some of our key wells. But this site, I think, is going to make for a really interesting conversation because we've just had the fire department have a discussion about this. It's essentially a big park site, but it's a water site. Ben Parks and Rec does use part of it for a dog park. The neighbors all use it. We're managing a lot out there. There's a lot of kind of more naturalized landscape. We had the fire department go out and talk to us about Firewise, and it made clear to us that there's still a gulf between Firewise discussions and water use discussions, as well as doing the right things for erosion control. Because if you hack down all the vegetation, you're going to have a bunch of erosion on a steep slope. So this is going to be a great site for us to walk around. We'll look and see how the vegetation's managed now, and we can all, kick the tires and talk about how we could coordinate these topics better. And also tree protection, definitely a big topic as well. So I'll be sending out an email to everybody asking for RSVPs. And we'll have, at the end of it, we'll have lunches for everybody as well. So hoping everybody can come to that. So I don't know if are there any questions about any of these first slides, or else I'll hand it over to Trista. Okay, yay. All right, Trista, I'll run the show, but it's your deal now. Oh, she's got to roll back and scream.
All right, well, I am about to run out of battery on my headset, so poor planning on my part. So give me a minute while I plug this in. Hold on one sec. Sorry.
Okay, have a little break here.
I guess I'll plug in our interactive session. So we're gonna do a little Menti poll. So once we get kind of towards the end here, it's pretty easy. Just hop on your phone or your computer, and then we'll get a little bit of feedback. So just kind of prepping for that if anybody wants to give us some feedback.
So you'll have information about how they get onto.
I'll share the screen and it'll show you how to dial in. It's super simple, but all it really requires is your phone.
Cool.
All right. Am I still audible?
Yep, you're good.
Okay, great. I'm just tethered. Okay. Well, thanks everyone for joining us. This is probably our last meeting where we're going to talk about the Stormwater Master Plan. We'll take a look at what the recommendations coming out of the plan are, where we are now, and what the next steps are, including up through adoption this fall. We'll just take a recap over what we've looked at over the past year and a half or so, and yeah, then talk about those next steps. So next slide, please. Yep, we'll start with the recap.
Oh, did I miss one?
Oh,
Oh, I moved this up, Trista, just so we could, these are the questions we're having people think about.
Oh, yeah.
During her presentation. Sorry, I switched your slide order on you.
No, that's okay. You told me you were going to do that. Okay, so as per usual, there's focus questions that we set up for the meeting. And since this meeting is all focused on the Stormwater Master Plan update, these are all about that. So the first one is whether you have any overall comments on the CIP once you see the final map, or the map, the costs, and sort of some example fact sheets of what our projects are looking like. Secondly, we haven't talked about this yet, but one of our next steps is to think about level of service for operations and maintenance of Bend stormwater system. And this is where the Menti survey will come in that Austin was talking about. Does the level of service you currently experience meet your expectations, fall below your expectations, or exceed your expectations on an overall basis? And then we might ask you on specific areas like street sweeping, addressing nuisance flooding concerns, addressing water quality of the river, erosion control on construction sites, and public education around stormwater. And then finally, our last question will be, having heard all of this over the past year and a half or so and thinking about the policy topics that we'll review today and where we need to go with stormwater, what do you think the strongest argument would be if the city needed to consider raising their stormwater monthly rates? That's just a wrap up question considering everything we've thought about for the last year and a half or so. Okay. And those are your focus questions. And we'll just start with this recap. Basically, what have we been doing? Or why did we have WAG involved? What did we ask you to think about? So this is updating the 2014 Stormwater Master Plan. And what we wanted to do was identify and address new conveyance or drainage issues that had arisen since then or hadn't been addressed since the 2014 plan. We wanted to make sure that we were thinking about water quality and risks to groundwater from drill holes and dry wells that the city owns and operates, and addressing any potential problems that might be occurring because of those UICs. We, thanks to the city's municipal stormwater permit, wanted to make sure we were addressing the outfalls that discharge stormwater to the Deschutes River, and from a water quality perspective. We don't want to exacerbate any water quality concerns in the river through the outfalls. And then we wanted to develop a capital program that would incorporate all of the things that we talked about there. And not really on this slide, but another thing we are looking at is some policy decisions or recommendations around climate change, drainage and density, and level of service. That was the purpose and overview of what we were doing. And if you could go to the next slide. Oh, there's the, I forgot that these bullets were on this page. These are the the policies I was just talking about. So yes, climate change, etc. Okay, and what we asked WAG to do over the course of this time was help us with our visioning questions. What is most important to you in the community? So that helped us balance, drainage concerns versus water quality concerns, for example. Also, what is the story of stormwater in Bend? What's your experience? What do you think the best way to communicate with the public about stormwater in Bend is? Leading from that into solution priorities, we actually took some of the answers we got on visioning to help us prioritize the stormwater capital improvement program so that we would be addressing the highest priority for the community, staff, WAG. And then we have asked for input on some of these policy considerations that we've been talking about. Do you support the idea of integrating or gathering more data so that a changing climate, changing precipitation patterns could be addressed in Bend stormwater standards? What's your level of comfort with that? What's your level of comfort with adding new tools to the stormwater toolbox so that development sites have easier pathways that are still sustainable to meeting their stormwater requirements on development sites? Are there impediments to the solutions that we have come up with? And it's not mentioned on here, but again, level of service that we'll talk about today. So the next thing we'll look at is kind of reviewing our timeline. Next slide, please. And this has updated a little bit. We had planned to be done this summer in June originally, so that would have been an 18-month time frame for when we started in January 2024. We're not too far off that schedule. We're looking to complete this now in September with a city council adoption at that time. So we are finishing up our recommendations, and you will have a chance to review the draft when it's produced. That should be in maybe late June, early July. And then we will finalize it based on any last feedback that we get and go to council in the fall. So it has been a pretty effective stepwise process. We've been able to step through it in pretty quick fashion, I would say. And so it's nice. Sometimes these projects can take, or planning projects can take quite a long time. And you really, by the time you get to the end, you're wondering if the issues you identified way back in the beginning are still relevant. But we've managed to keep a pretty good clip. And we're pretty sure that all of the stuff we started talking about in January is relevant and well on its way to becoming recommendations in the plan that will be an effective help and guidance for the city going forward over the next 10 or 20 years in managing stormwater. So we're happy about that. And then I think we'll just jump into what we've kind of come up with and what our recommendations are going to be. And we'll start with these UIC priorities. I think you all know, but as a reminder, or for anyone who's might be listening to the recording later, UIC stands for Underground Injection Control. It's a way of managing stormwater by injecting it directly into the ground rather than discharging it to a water body like a river or a stream. And Bend has thousands of UICs in its stormwater inventory.
7,000.
7,000, as a matter of fact, something like that. Yes. So that's quite a big number. The geological conditions in Bend make that a very convenient and suitable way to manage stormwater, and less expensive than trying to dig trenches for pipes in this rocky soil. So there's a lot of good reasons for using UICs, and they are a really good tool in that toolbox. So one of the things we first looked at is an emerging style of underground injection control called a modified dry well, or another name for it is a deep dry well. Your typical dry wells only reach around 30 feet down into the ground, and a modified or deep dry well can reach 100 feet or even more. And this allows you to bypass some of the pink tuff layer where you don't get infiltration if you can drill below it and reach layers of the soil that are more permeable. But they don't come without risks because, of course, you're getting closer and closer to groundwater resources the deeper you drill. So we took a look at where would be the lower risk locations to site modified dry wells. And mostly these are in city rights of way that have a low probability that they would be subject to a spill or pollutants from trucks, trains, vehicles, and things like that. And so on the map, those are the streets you see in green. And another criteria was distance from water wells and municipal water wells. And then the areas in yellow are locations that could be suitable for siting a modified or deep dry well, but might require a little bit more justification on the part of the engineer who's proposing it, and need to demonstrate the safety and feasibility to the city's engineers. So we are still, there's probably some modifications to this map that will be forthcoming based on new information about the ADT of roads, the average daily traffic of some of the roads. But generally, this is what this will look like. And this should become a tool that the city would adopt or make available, the map itself, as well as potentially adding the deep dry well to the standards and specifications for stormwater so that it's a tool that can be used. The
Yeah, we're
SMP is not
actually-
doing that work, but will recommend that work proceed. Sorry, Lori.
Yeah, no, it's okay, Trista, thanks. Yeah, so actually, we're already moving on this idea, and we're working to draft some updated standards that we hope to put into place this calendar year in that regard.
Yeah. So that's kind of an exciting new
Hey.
development in Bend. Okay, another UIC priority was an effort to prioritize drill holes. These are older UIC technologies that have little to no protection of water quality of the groundwater resources below them. So there are over 1,000 of these, or around 1,000 of these in Bend. Again, an
It's
older
around 1,000.
technology, around 1,000. They're not allowed anymore, but there are still quite a few operating. And we were looking for those that might pose the highest risk to the groundwater resources below them. And so a hydrogeology firm did a study on this and came up with the 17 that you see in red on this map. They're all near a municipal water well. That's why they have the highest risk, as it turns out. So these, there will be a capital recommendation in the Stormwater Master Plan to retrofit or decommission and move these 17 drill holes so that they are no longer posing a risk to the groundwater resources. We are still working on the costs for this program. But we will be recommending that these get retrofit at a pretty good clip over the next 5 to 10 years because of the emphasis on water quality that we heard from WAG and staff's concerns around this as well. So those will be one of the capital programs. And then another capital program that has, these are failing UICs. So the others were working fine. The ones you just saw, they were working fine, but they may pose a risk to groundwater because they're might be too close to groundwater. These are actually UICs, and some of them are dry wells and some of them are drill holes, but they are failing. They've either silted in or they simply weren't sized appropriately for the drainage area that goes to them, or the characteristics of the drainage area may have changed and they may be receiving more water than they were originally intended to. So these locations have localized flooding that is nuisance and or may pose a safety risk on roads for the traveling public if they're on roads. So these, I think 18 of these are the highest priority ones. Mostly these were identified by staff. They get called out to these again and again and need to take measures, either closing off a lane or doing what they can to reduce the drainage issue in the moment. But these will be either re-drilled or replaced with another 1 or 2 dry wells in series nearby so that there is infrastructure to handle the drainage that is present. So many of these solutions could be done in-house. So we've grouped them together in a capital program. And it's possible that they will be addressed under the city's already existing major maintenance, or another name for it that they used is a repair and replacement annual budget line item. But these will be a capital recommendation in the plan as well. And next slide. So the next set of capital improvements tend to be larger projects that can't be addressed in-house, generally speaking. That might be able to be designed in-house, but they cannot be constructed in-house. So these are, most master plans. The highlight of the master plan is the capital project list. So this is kind of the heart of what we're doing here. So just to recap how we came up with these projects, we, again, collected a lot of information about where the drainage issues are. We studied all the outfalls to prioritize which ones are most in need of a retrofit to improve water quality at that outfall into the Deschutes River. And we came up with roughly 100 known issues in the city for drainage and water quality. And then we applied some of those goals and values that we learned about during the visioning process to help us screen, group, and select the highest priority issues that could only be addressed via a capital project like the ones we're about to look at. Then we again use some of those goals and values that we discovered in visioning to further prioritize that capital project list and come up with a ranked list of projects. And we actually had about the same number of projects that we chose as we ranked. So none really fell off the list. We're doing 13 capital improvement project fact sheets. So those are the 13 that will be prioritized over the next 10 years to 20 years to be completed as this master plan gets implemented. So let us take a look. We'll go back and just refresh our memory on the next slide, Lori, about how we prioritize the projects. We used a set of criteria and we divided those criteria into categories. So, and this is a reminder of the maximum score that we had for each category. For conveyance and flooding issues, or a project that would address a conveyance and flooding issue, its maximum score is 20. For a project that would address the water quality improvement, protect the river from urban pollutants, that max score is 20. A project that has multiple benefits, the maximum score there is 20. Other recognized priority projects, the maximum score is 10. And projects that have easier feasibility and lower cost relative to the other projects in the list, that's the feasibility and cost category. They have a maximum score of 10 for a total points available of 80. So the next slide is how the projects actually ranked. You can see our top project on the top there is a stormwater outfall that also has a drainage improvement combined with it. So we're solving more than one issue with this project, and it ranked number 1 with a total score of 51. And then down from there, in that kind of middle column called type, you can see the main type of project it is, and we have 2 main types of projects. The retrofit projects are those that protect water quality in the Deschutes River. And what we're doing with these projects is adding a water quality treatment facility to pass the runoff that is from an existing developed area through a treatment facility before it gets discharged to the river. And so we have a handful of those, and they tended to score well. And then the blue highlighted projects are drainage projects. Those are solving localized flooding issues, basically nuisance flooding, things that flood the roadway or flood private property and cause safety issues, inconvenience, or damage. And you can see we've the lowest score for the Campbell Road drainage improvement projects was 23. So we didn't have a huge spread among the projects. With the max score of 80, our top scoring one achieved 51. And let's see, we've seen this before, so this is to recap. Yes, Austin.
Yeah, and I guess just pointing out one more time, like Tristan mentioned, our top 2 priorities we looked at was drainage and water quality. So we were pretty pleasantly surprised to see once we ran everything through, the criteria to find that we had a pretty good balance of both. So just kind of highlighting that. I know we've already talked about it.
yeah, they're interleaved in their priority as it turned out. So yeah, I think it's a good set of projects that the city can work on over the next 10 to 20 years and achieve multiple aims. Okay, on the next slide, this also came to you as a handout because it's a little hard to put this on a slide, but this is just one example of a project fact sheet. We are still finalizing these. So this is a draft. The city has seen drafts of all of our project fact sheets, but they haven't been finalized yet. So everything we're talking about today is still a draft recommendation as far as the capital program. So things will get refined, costs may change. The concept you see drawn on here may shift slightly in the final analysis, but this is essentially what we're doing here. For each of those capital projects you saw in the prior list, we create a fact sheet that has all the information that the city or a future engineer who might be designing this project needs to understand what problem we're trying to solve, a description of what the solution concept is. A concept level cost estimate is also included, and some thoughts about the site constraints, what additional data would be needed to be collected in order to really finalize the design and implement a project. We're working with these are concept level solutions. We're working with very limited data, and in most cases, we really need to get survey, maybe some geotechnical information, and other types of data collection before the next person down the line who picks this up and tries to work with it can really proceed to either vet this concept or come up with a different concept. And they're just packaged in these nice fact sheets that hopefully give the next person a good launch place for how to solve this problem. And usually we're showing some photos of the site or the issue as we've been looking at it through the city's database of collected issues. So this one happens to be just south of Galveston on the east side of the river on northwest riverfront. They're kind of in the drawing on the right, there's an outfall 128. It has been identified as one of the outfalls that is a high priority for a retrofit project so that we can get treatment from this drainage area that is flowing to this outfall that is untreated currently. And the outfall also has some condition issues here where it's connected to the stormwater pipe in the street. And there have been drainage issues in this neighborhood. So with this project, we'll try to solve all three of those problems. And we are proposing, again at the concept level, proprietary filtration treatment systems. These are underground vaults that have some sort of filtration device or filtration medium that the runoff passes through, and pollutants, sediment, sometimes metal or phosphorus, depending on the media that is chosen, can get removed from the stormwater before it's then discharged to the river. And in this case, we are also proposing some new stormwater pipe in riverfront to convey some of the runoff north to this other outfall 022 that is in Drake Park, or it passes right through Drake Park just north of Galveston, just to take off some of the to allow the system to have additional capacity, because we are getting neighborhood flooding in the location of this outfall. So our fact sheet describes this concept and kind of a plan view, very schematic drawing of what the concept is. And then if you notice in the proposed improvements on the drawing, and I'm sorry, Laura, I don't know, Lori, do you have a mouse where you can point to? is your,
Can people see that?
I can't see it.
Like
Okay.
I'm right like that.
I can see it.
You can?
I do.
Oh,
Yeah.
I have it like right at that lower.
Oh,
outfall
okay.
right now.
Can you go to the legend of the map, please, and hover over the proprietary filter system, the manhole, and the storm sewer pipe? In the
Got it. Oh, now it's not. Now my mouse is not. Wait a minute. There we go.
There we go. So these symbols here, particularly the proprietary filter system and storm sewer pipe, I just want to give you a little demonstration of how we use those symbols. So if you go on to the next slide, Lori.
Oh, okay.
Sorry, I'm bossing you around here.
Yeah.
This is an example, and again, you've got these emailed to you. It's a little easier to see than on this slide. These are sort of excerpts of this toolkit fact sheet. So we have what we call our toolkit for stormwater capital project development, and we take each of those tools that you saw in the legend, the proprietary filter system, storm sewer pipe. Different projects would have different tools in this legend. This example that you see in front of you is the deep dry well tool. And we create a hypothetical facility using this tool and thinking about all the components that you need to actually install or construct the tool. That might be, in this case, drilling, backfilling, restoring the asphalt pavement above the location where you do this tool, etc. So we take a hypothetical facility, we come up with a cost for that hypothetical facility, and then we take a unit that we could put on a concept level fact sheet or drawing like you saw above and divide the cost by those units. In this example for deep dry well, the unit is actually just one deep dry well. So per deep dry well, we have a cost. So in our fact sheets for the capital projects, we would do some very, very preliminary concept level engineering to size how big of a facility we'd need, how many deep dry wells we would need, and then we would put those, however many we need, on the map in our concept drawing, and then we have a cost. So in this example, you can see, considering everything that we need to do to get a deep dry well, our very planning level estimate is that each one costs about $75,000. Again, as kind of an all-inclusive package of all the things you need to do to get that in the ground. So we have 14, I think, tools that we're using that we updated for Bend to be specific to Bend's stormwater design standards and the costs for implementing that type of facility in Bend using the materials and recent costs. So we have a whole set of these fact sheets with these unit prices. Then we design the concept project using those tools. And that's how we come up with our cost for the project. And then we add on top of that, a construction contingency, the city's administrative costs, construction management, design and survey, and all those typical things that you would find in a project cost estimate. So that is how we come up with the project costs. Using these sort of simplified tools. Okay. And the next slide shows the map. So these are the projects laid out geographically on the city. And the blue ones are the drainage projects. The orange ones are the outfall retrofit projects. And then also shown on this map I didn't put the legend on here, so apologies for that. But also shown on this map are the kind of light yellow circles are stormwater projects that are currently in progress. So we didn't create fact sheets for those, and the costs are not included on the next slide where we'll summarize the costs for the CIP, but they're already in progress to varying degrees. Some of them are nearing completion, some are still in design or gathering funding, but you can see that work continues on some of the older priorities from the 2014 master plan and priorities that have arisen in the interim between then and now. And then on here, you can also see those 17 drill hole retrofits that we talked about over on the east side, and the 18 UIC, the failing UICs that will be corrected for drainage problems on here as well. So this is sort of the full story of the capital program recommendations.
And if Trisha, if I could add here too, so this came from, they put an awesome GIS map together. And so we use that to create this PDF, but we're going to take that GIS information and incorporate it to our utility viewers that we have on our city webpage.
Yeah.
So, as if you're looking at it from a development lens, when you're going to see what type of infrastructure and, working on whatever capital or right-of-way improvements, this will be in there as like a interactive information as well, giving backgrounds of the problems and some of the solutions. So just want to make awareness of that.
And I think it could be set up also so that in the online version of this map, if you clicked on a project, you would get maybe its status and implementation, as the CIP evolves every year or two. Certain projects will move closer to implementation, or they might be in process. So it would be great if that interactive map at the end had sort of those status updates. And that would be the hope, I think. Okay, so the big reveal, what is all this going to cost? A few dollars, around $22 million. This is our first draft. The city is still looking at the draft fact sheets, and we will have comments, I'm sure. So this number is not firm right now, but this is just our first cut. And you can see a few of the projects are really inexpensive. Some of the very simple drainage improvements on Vicksburg Avenue, Dove Lane, Campbell Road. These I don't think will be big lifts. And that's nice because a few of the retrofit projects, especially ones where the water quality facilities are treating a large drainage basin, the cost to add that treatment in an existing area can be quite high. So you can see right now on the Galveston stormwater outfall retrofit is our most expensive project. This covers about 16 square blocks. I want to say it's a pretty big area, and will require quite a few proprietary treatment vaults. And one of our other new tools that we haven't talked about yet, but stormwater trees are being proposed for the Galveston stormwater outfall retrofit. This is on the west side of the river. So it's sort of mixed use. Right now, Galveston is a heavily used roadway. So we do think there's a lot of pollutants probably coming from that area into the river that we would want to control. So we'll be revising these costs as we get the comments from the city on the CIP fact sheets, but I think somewhere in this neighborhood is what you can expect to see. These are in $20-25, and this is going to be looking out 10 or 20 years. So you would divide these costs over that time frame. And then when you get to the point where you want to design and then implement one of these, you would want to escalate the budget by the maybe a consumer price index or construction price index increase that has occurred in the interim since 2025. So this will be an ever-changing number, but looking at it in today's dollars, it's significant, but it's also not out of step with the other master plans the city has produced recently, and not out of step with the draft capital improvement budget that the city is considering right now for the 2026 fiscal year, in terms of if you divided this up year by year. It's pretty in line with that. All right. That is really all we have to say about the capital improvement project. So our capital improvement program, sorry about that. So this is the chance for you to jump in with our first focus question, which is, do you have any overall comments on the capital improvement program? You will get a chance to see it in greater detail when the draft plan comes out. So if you wanted to save your commentary until that time, that would be fine too. But if you have anything that's coming to mind now, we'd love to hear it.
I
Yeah,
was
so we
just
didn't put this
curious. Well, I was just curious what number 8 was. Said it dropped off
Oh,
because of infeasibility.
Yes.
Columbia
Which
Park.
one was that? I'm sorry?
Columbia Park.
Yes, thank you.
Mm.
It was Columbia Park. For that outfall, we originally wanted to coordinate with Bend Park and Recreation District and try to retrofit the existing swale that's in Columbia Park to handle more runoff and treat more water. But after talking to the district, we realized that that was not going to be feasible. So yeah, that one fell off. We have a project a little further upstream in that basin. So we're still capturing quite a lot of runoff before it gets discharged to the river in that proposed project. Yes.
Those underground filtration units that you had that collect the heavy metals, what's the expected life cycle of those? How long do those last?
Well, we are being intentionally vague in this about which proprietary system you would use. We weren't trying to prefer one manufacturer or one type over another. They probably all have an overall expected life of 50 to 75 years. How often they need routine maintenance differs by the style. The kind that have a filtration medium in a filter capsule cartridge, thank you. Couldn't think of the word. Capsule, good enough. The media needs, the cartridges need to be changed out often every year, and it can vary by location depending on how much sediment is getting into the vault. If there's appropriate pretreatment provided, and our concept designs always include pretreatment that would capture the sediments and trash in advance of the water flowing into the vault, that should increase the life cycle of each cartridge, but they do need replacement on a fairly routine basis. You can do that either in-house, or you can usually contract the manufacturer or another service provider to do that work. So it is it will be a recommendation in the master plan to consider the increasing need for maintenance as these retrofit projects are implemented, either staffing or budget for maintenance, or both.
Yeah, cartridge filters are a pretty big deal. We don't have many of them now. They're basically the ones that we have are along the Newport Avenue project.
It sounds like the Newport Avenue project with the swales and the cartridges that
Yeah, so swales were
Mhm.
one surface treatment method, and the other was there's these underground vaults, just concrete vaults. I mean, it's pretty simple,
Yeah.
but then there's all these cartridges that you have to, that when they're wet and full of sediment can be a couple 100 pounds or more to pull them out, put a new one in. So the maintenance cost of these also, it's fairly considerable, but there's not a lot of, I mean, really your two choices for water quality are either like something like a swale or these. The swale, in general, when you look at other jurisdictions, costs tend to be a little less expensive to maintain and they're a little more forgiving. But finding space for them can be really hard. And
That's an issue.
Yeah.
yeah, so
Yeah, when you're dealing with a right of way that is already taken up, might be narrow. The one we looked at is in an older area of town where the right of way is not wide. There's already a sidewalk. There are mature trees. There is not a landscaping strip. There really isn't a good location to put a surface treatment facility. So in those cases, you're left with few options. So we are
Yeah.
going underground. Now,
Yep,
it is
it's
true.
retrofit.
It's retrofit. Yeah, when you're trying to fit in an existing developed area, underground is often the only location you have. I will say the one we looked at, Northwest Riverfront, that area is very flat. And with the information we have, we're not able to tell at this moment if that concept of using underground proprietary treatment is feasible. There may not be enough grade change between the neighborhood and the outfall to achieve that. But that's why we've got a good design budget, survey budget, and have noted that constraint. So that may need to have a different concept in the end in order to make a feasible project in that location, or some combination, maybe some filter vaults, some stormwater trees, that will have to get worked out in design. Austin.
Oh no, I just dropped a picture of those vaults in the chat just for a visual.
Oh, got it.
Yeah, folks may remember that who went on the WAG tour last June when we walked the stormwater walking tour. I'm going to recommend, Trista, that I know we wanted to walk through all the things to remind everybody of the recommendations that we have already been through those before. I kind of want to get us quickly to the level of service discussion because we haven't talked about that before.
Yeah.
And we only have 30 minutes left, and if we need to, we can come back, or these slides will be posted. But if you don't mind,
Yep.
I'm kind of wanting to jump us to that.
Sounds good.
Okay, so you'll just see these as we go passing through them. You'll remember that we had the three things, the policy areas: climate change, drainage, and density. And I want to make sure we have time to talk about level of service. So you'll recall we had a couple of discussions about climate change, and I think folks will hopefully remember the recommendations about that. And there will be a chance to look at it again in the draft plan when it comes out. So I'm going to skip through this. Drainage and density we've talked about multiple times. I think we're all familiar with that. So there'll be standards, we have to worry about trade-offs. So let's talk about level of service.
Do you want to introduce it, Lori, since you're talking?
Oh, I can. So level of service is just the idea, and sometimes, I mean, I don't know, maybe we should have talked about this at the very beginning, but we weren't prepared yet. But level of service, when you think about it, is just like, you know, we have a stormwater drainage utility, and what not only what services are we providing, but like what frequency. And that can be based on regulatory requirements. It also can be based on level of complaints, and you can have a stormwater program where you're really just focused on being reactive and reacting to, say, complaints versus being proactive and having like a regular maintenance frequency of your systems. And this slide shows some of the things that you might consider as part of level of service of the program. So, and there's more things than this, but we were kind of just summarizing, right? So responding to neighborhood scale flooding problems, maybe it's plugged systems that haven't been maintained or systems that or lack of systems. Repairing and maintaining the system. So that's, the catch basins, the pipes, the dry wells and drill holes, and also the sweeping of the streets. Vegetation management also similarly, but again, for those above ground vegetated facilities, taking care of them. There's a lot of landscape maintenance with that. Inspection. So if you want to be efficient with your maintenance practices, you should be looking at like, well, is the catch basin full or not? Does the pipe have roots in it? Things like that. And I will say for Bend, I worked many years on stormwater plans and stormwater systems on the west side of the state. When I'm looking at Bend, I will say I don't think personally we have as high of a level of service as some organizations, and that was brought home to me when we were preparing to launch this stormwater master plan. And I asked our operations folks if they could provide, we have these little television cameras that you can put down pipes, and if they could provide TV information on our pipes, and we didn't have that information and did not have a routine TV program. And so when they sent the cameras down the pipes in advance of doing this work, they couldn't get them down half the pipes. So there was needs related to kind of general operations and maintenance. Let's see. And then water quality is obviously also a big part of our program, and level of service can include like, are we addressing prevention of pollutants potentially getting out into the river, also down into the groundwater as well. So those are kind of the things about level of service. This is a really important discussion because as we put together the capital costs and then we have programmatic recommendations, those also have dollar values to them. And we need to compare that to how much money we have coming in for the program and see if we can afford these recommendations within our existing program. So level of service leads to cost of service, leads to evaluation of rates, what we charge everybody a monthly rate. We charge folks based on like equivalent dwelling units. So like a single family house, every single family lot and house is charged the same amount, which is about $7.50 a month. That's definitely on the low side for stormwater utilities around the state. And it's the smaller part of your utility bill. And then other properties like commercial and multifamily are charged based on an equivalency of an amount of square feet of impervious area per equivalent residential unit. And so that's where basically all the money's coming in now. We don't have systems development charges for stormwater. So it's entirely coming in from rates. There really aren't a lot of grants out there for stormwater management. So people paying their monthly utility bills is how all this is funded. So this is really important because we want to make a recommendation about level of service in the different program areas and then evaluate that when it comes time to do a rate study.
I will just add that how fast you implement your capital program is also a level of service question.
Yes, definitely. So I guess I kind of largely covered all that. Funding will be reviewed. So I don't think Jillian's here, brand new back at the city she's working on the water rates first. And I think stormwater will follow that. But, I'm hopeful within the next year or so, after we have asked council to adopt the plan, that we'll be able to start digging into the costs and what the options might be in regards to our rates. And then that will be a discussion we'll bring back to this group. So I guess I'll just keep going.
Sorry. Thanks, Lori.
Yeah, no problem. Stormwater stuff, makes me happy to talk about. So this was where Austin was going to set up the opportunity to ask everybody some questions. And these are kind of just getting your gut reactions. You've heard a lot about stormwater and our stormwater systems and all the different issues and the regulatory requirements and all of that over the past year and a half. He stole the screen from me. Go for it.
Yeah, so the way you can join in here, if you just go to menti.com, and then it's just going to ask you to put in that code 1318 7277. And so like Lori mentioned, that's kind of this final leg of the master plan, trying to develop what's a level 1, 2, 3 of service, and then incorporating that into like, okay, what does that mean in terms of a rate? So what we'd love kind of as a final input from the WAG group is how do you feel that we fall right now in terms of level of service? So we'll just give everybody a chance. Please let me know if you're able to get in. Looks like
we got one.
Like we are. And so this one is just kind of an all around general, level of service. And then like we showed earlier, we're going to get into a little bit more granular content.
Is anybody having any issues, or are folks able to get on? There's 4. And we're doing this just for the committee members or the group members, not as staff. We'll have our own chance to talk.
And I'll say, Lori, I have very low confidence in my vote. I feel like from a regulatory compliance perspective and even just sort of observational, it's hard to gauge what is appropriate. So when you say, for example, that from your observation that we're below, that feels like that. I would give that kind of expert opinion a lot of weight. I can imagine if there are easy to observe problems like street flooding and water quality impacts. The street sweeping is an interesting one because that's something I actually think about a lot for bike ped sorts of policy issues and keeping our streets bikeable as much as possible. But I don't know how much of that is a stormwater issue versus a transportation system issue.
These are really great questions, Mark. I appreciate it. And maybe I shouldn't have told everybody my opinion before you voted. That was probably wrong. Discard that, everybody. But in regards to street sweeping particularly, so you do street sweeping for a variety of reasons. Yes, there's the pedestrian safety, there's aesthetics downtown. And then there's the water quality benefits of most pollutants tend to like to attach themselves to sediment particles. So if you remove those, you're removing the potential for pollution. Also, the dirt and stuff in the streets can also plug up stormwater systems. So right now, the city, just for your knowledge, and this is different in every single city, but we pay about 40% of the cost of street sweeping from the stormwater program. And about 60% is paid by the transportation program. So it kind of reflects that level of benefit. And there are, I'll say there are things the city does well with stormwater management. I think we're doing a pretty decent job of maintaining, like when you look at the vegetated facilities along Newport, those are being well maintained. We do a decent amount of street sweeping. But like I said, with the pipes and some of our older systems, I think we haven't had the ability to focus on some of those. So, anyways, again, I'm giving you the answer. Sorry.
No, that's helpful, and I'll say that I ran a big project for EPA one time looking at all of the water quality contaminant sources for Puget Sound and what were the most cost-effective sources to go after and actions. And street sweeping was just an order of magnitude more cost-effective in terms of pounds of pollutant avoidance or removal from the sound than anything else. So I've always watched that, and I know it's one of these lowest cost strategies, and you should do it as much as you can, but it's hard to know how much that's useful to hear about sort of the impact on the system, but I wasn't sure how much of that would transmit to surface water otherwise.
Yeah, and I think some of the feedback we want, I think this group in particular has more knowledge and awareness of stormwater than the average person in the community. And you know, we're trying to kind of use this as, I guess, one step towards that. So don't let, you know, any, I don't know, lack of experience or what have you. We're interested in your opinion and your perspective on this.
Yeah.
Regardless of what your specific stormwater, you know.
Yeah. So think about what you observe. So like this next question about street sweeping, think about what you observed. So as you're walking or driving or biking around, you know, you can see the effects of sweeping or not sweeping, right? So just like Mark said about being concerned about pedestrians and that's okay, because if you're seeing this stuff and you don't think it's being cleaned up, that also is related to a lower level of service from a stormwater benefits as well, because you can see the materials and it's not picked up. So
Can I just make one comment because it's so interesting? So I moved to Bend 15 years ago. We had significant flooding in places like the Franklin underpass that really impeded people's ability to travel on our roadways. That made it a lot easier to get people's attention on a stormwater fee because you're pointing out what is it that you actually see when you talk about UICs and drill holes. It's a little harder to explain what the value of investing in our continual improvement in our stormwater system. And so it's interesting to relate it to this other piece of just the aesthetics and the part that stormwater services can provide. But it's always challenging for people. They don't, when it's out of sight, it's out of mind. And it will be a challenge always to keep that top of mind. I'm so grateful to hear your thoughts. Thank you, everyone.
So we got 5 here, got a couple more. We're looking for 7 if we're all still.
not that we're not going to twist your arm. If you don't feel comfortable, you don't have to.
Ready for the next one?
Yeah, let's.
All
Oh,
right.
there we go. So, okay, thank you. Let's move to the next one.
So this one kind of goes into that Franklin underpass example of flooding, so, navigating the public right of way, ADA ramps. I know like downtown that came up as a priority project for us as well. What is your experience as far as like managing the flooding nuisance issues that we have around town?
This is a cool idea, Austin, doing the voting. I like it. And you'll be able to keep these results.
Yeah.
Yeah, awesome.
Right.
Okay.
Just a couple more here. So this one into water quality as far as, the Deschutes River. So, yeah, again, that was one of our major priorities that we valued in ranking our projects. So kind of your gut reaction as you're in an inner tube floating down the river, looking at outfalls, usually not on a rainy day, but again, this kind of ties in. Go ahead, Mark, please.
Sorry. What kind of responsibility does the city have for just surface runoff that isn't entering the stormwater system? I'm thinking about in terms of parks and, shoreline. And I know that BPRD and others have been doing some hardening and the like, but sort of from an observational perspective, is that a city issue, do you think, still?
So it's an interesting question. From a regulatory standpoint, we are obligated in regards to what's going into pipes and going out into the river. And then we have all these management practices we have to implement to meet that. In regards to like, properties along the river itself, I mean, other than if they're like doing development and are triggering something in our development code, not so much.
Yeah, that's what I kind of assume, because I'm thinking how much I observe at parks. Like we live near First Street Rapids, and there's just when people are using it pretty heavily, there's pretty serious erosion and sediment dirt getting knocked in. And I know you see that all over the place. And whenever I'm at the Whitewater Park and I see kids just shoveling dirt and sediment out in, like throwing it into the river, it always makes me cringe. But I know those aren't really city responsibilities specifically,
No,
as
it is-
opposed to a city issue.
Yeah, it's an interesting question because parks is a separate district and how to manage that. And we do have a waterway overlay zone that has some requirements. Like I said, typically it's if you're triggered by doing a development. I haven't seen here the where I worked in the Tualatin River Basin, Portland metro area for years, we actually had jurisdictional requirements for having vegetated buffers along the stream corridors. And that was to meet regulatory requirements for temperature and sediment management in the rivers. That could be coming someday in the future, when what are called TMDLs eventually get placed on the deschutes by the Department of Environmental Quality, so total maximum daily loads of pollutants. But that hasn't been done yet for the deschutes.
We also have our river plan that we did a couple years ago that looked at all the properties we owned along the river to identify those kind of user-created trails where people were accessing and opportunities. That's part of the reason why we've done some of the hardening, is then to allow us to close off some of those user-created accesses, whatever, and do restoration in between, so that we're being more intentional about where and how people are accessing the river, and that helped us prioritize projects. So some of them are big capital projects and others are ones that can be done by our natural resources and trails crew.
Yeah, I thought Riverbend was a great example of that, where there's like the fencing up now along a lot of it, and then there's just points where you're directing people to get down to the river.
Yeah, a lot of the current activity going on, down there across from Columbia.
Yeah, no, I'm definitely aware that the city, that Parks is doing a lot with that, and I do sort of wonder how much of that is a burden that that park district can handle on its own, especially as population grows and visitor numbers increase. It's just hard to manage. But it would be like a TMDL model to know what those pollutant loads are that are limiting factors for the river's water quality and what those sources are would be really helpful. And I don't know if conceptually internally you have a sense of what are those critical loads. Like when and I know that sediment load, that surface sediment load can be a really important piece, especially from nutrient transport. When I worked on water quality trading in other places, that's often the most important source. So sort of future issues.
Yep.
Yeah, this one, I think a lot of you read it already, but just looking at erosion control and how we're managing that. And Mark, to that point, some of the existing projects like South Arm Review drainage that were pointed out on that map, a lot of the major goals of these projects is to reduce the amount of flow to the river. And so you'll see in some of the programmatic sheets that Trista's group put together, you'll see some of those that even, do upstream management to try to get that water in the ground that doesn't just flow all the way to the river as a means to reducing those pollutant loads. All right, and I think we just have one more here. And this goes to public education. So some feedback about how the city's doing about public education, and a lot of the stuff you described about the sediment on the roads and understanding that, that does make it into the stormwater system and the connection that we have with our transportation and stormwater networks. Awesome.
Cool.
And then we have the one final for some feedback, but I think we are going to throw it back, but we're kind of running low on time. The last one was just a write-in, but.
Oh, so how did they do that? So that's a,
You should be able to type in, if you have any specific feedback, so this is, taking your level of service anywhere, meeting or underperforming, that's, like we mentioned, that ties to rates. So just curious, does anybody has any arguments they'd be willing to share, just to kind of bring to the conversation when it gets to like a rate discussion? And it's a sensitive issue here in the city about rates. And so just, trying to make sure that we can, manage our values when it comes to stormwater. And so if you have anything to offer up as far as an argument where,
and it could be put on here. You could also type into the chat if that's easier.
yeah, and also if anything comes to mind later, feel free to, email us. We really appreciate all this feedback.
Yeah, this has been great.
Yeah, even last weekend, I think last Saturday was a good example.
These are great. Thank you. I didn't realize you could type stuff in on Menti. This is great.
Yeah, I'll plug Menti for this. This is the first time I've used it, but it's a free app to a certain extent. So, just to the group, if you're ever doing, meetings that you're looking for feedback, I recommend it. It's really useful. It's super easy. All right, so we got 6 there.
Thank you.
Couple minutes left, Lori. Thank you all very much for your input.
So, yeah, I think we can just try to see if there was anything else for us, but I think we went through the questions. Oh, I'm gonna share my screen again and I will, or I don't need to share it for this. I'll just say these things. So just, thank you for that. So to know that there will be a draft of the plan, and when it is available for review, we'll put it on the website. We'll make it available to everybody. If you want to read all the pages, we'd be thrilled, but you don't have to. We've appreciated all your input. And we'll be headed hopefully to council so we'll finalize with final comments, hopefully headed to council in September for adoption. Next things for us as the WAG group. So our next meeting is June 4th. That's the in-person tour I mentioned at Overturf Park. I'm really excited to have this discussion that interweaves all these things we've been talking about. So water-wise, erosion, and then trying to coordinate that with fire-wise concepts. I think looking at a site will help us have a really robust discussion about that. And there will be lunch provided. And then, as is typical for WAG, we're not planning to have any meetings in July and August. Last year, we did ask a small group to come together and talk about stormwater. We appreciated that. I think we're good this year. So we'll come back in September. And September and October will be our typical ones, I think, both here. And then certainly by November, we'll be at the new building, and we'll make sure that that includes a tour of our some of our cool landscape measures that address water quality and stormwater management on that new site. So I think that'll be super fun.
I'm interested in what those are too.
Oh, you can come, Trista. Okay, well, I think that's it. Unless anybody has anything for the good of the order. I appreciate. Oh, and one final note, the other thing that'll be coming out probably in the next few months will be a draft of new standards for like dry well standards, updates in particular. I think the drainage and density stuff will take a little bit longer, but we'll see what comes out of it and if there's anything that we can do quickly and put into the next standards update as well. So anyways, more to come on that. We'll let everybody know. And thanks, everybody.
Thank you so
Hopefully see
much
you
for your
Thanks.
attention and
Thanks.
feedback
Thank
over
you.
the last year and a half on the Stormwater Master Plan. It's been very valuable.
Good job presenting, Trista. Thank you.
We'll give kudos to Lori